What is a PMO? So what is a PMO? Well, despite being the best PMO in the world, I still find that a little difficult to explain. You see, everywhere you work, everywhere has a different expectation on what a PMO is. In fact, even if you go and ask different PMOs within the same organization, they'll give a different explanation as to what their role is and what their priorities are. So that makes it difficult to answer the question, what is a PMO? But I'm still going to ask around and see if I can find an answer for you. I'll tell you what, it's cold out here, so I'm going to head indoors and ask those questions. So I did ask around. I asked people on LinkedIn what they would define a PMO as. As you can imagine, I had a lot of responses, and here's just a few of them. A PMO is a strict command and control group, a passive template library, a general dog's body, the governance police, the inflexible red tape that has to be ignored or worked around, admin support, a room booking service, a reporting function, the first line of defense, assurance, the ensuring of strategy and benefits being achieved. Oh, I like this one. The unsung heroes of project management. Whoever you are who said that, mwah. The guarantee that the right resources are on the right projects at the right time. A service that gives stakeholders a clear view of progress and issues in a simple, easily interpreted way to enable clear decision making to ensure continued value for money and outcomes achieved. A simple view of delivery confidence. A function, a person. A lot of diverse responses there, and an awful lot of them, in my opinion, can be true, which I hope explains to you why I'm finding it so difficult to explain to you in this video what a PMO is. You see, if I told you what I do in my PMO job, I'd only be giving you a partial explanation because every other PMO job I've ever done has been different. And here's the reason for you. The letters P, M, O. Well, the P tends to change from place to place, depending on the circumstances and on the needs of the business. So for most project managers encountering a PMO for the first time, the PMO will be a project management office. But then sometimes the P doesn't stand for project. Sometimes it stands for program, and that does something a little different. And on other times the P stands for portfolio, and that is doing something a lot different. So now you know that when you hear the term PMO, you're hearing one of potentially 3 different definitions, and you need to be clear on which version you're talking about. Come with me. Okay, that's the one. Okay, the PMO competency framework does a great job of explaining every single one of those types of PMOs, what's expected of them, what services they deliver, and how to judge how effective they are at those services. And I could sit here and read this to you, but who's got the time? So let's just get the writer on a call. So I reached out to Lindsay Scott, one of the founders of the House of PMO and one of the authors of that book, The PMO Competency Framework. And I wanted to ask her, what is the difference between these different types of PMOs and what are their priorities?
Really short answer about what a PMO is. It basically supports an organisation in all their change activity. So what we mean by change is obviously projects, programmes, portfolios, whatever you want to call it. That is the main thing about what a PMO is doing. It's supporting an organisation. Okay, that's it. However, just to give you some kind of background stuff to it and to build it up and what we actually mean by change activity, it can mean that, let's just take a project, for example. A project will have obviously a project manager and a project team, and they really like to have somebody to support them in their project. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, documentation that needs creating, there's status reports that need filing, blah, 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 blah. So that is the very basics of somebody supporting a change activity at a project level, which is fantastic. So if an organization's only got 1 or 2 projects, there you've got somebody doing that kind of supporting role. And it may not actually be called a PMO, but generally that's what they're doing. And then what tends to happen, an organization does more and more change because actually their business is undergoing some kind of, they've been threatened by some competitors, or actually we need to put some new products to the market. We need some more projects. So generally what that person will do within that PMO, that one person that's supporting that project, they might be able to take on another 2 or 3. So they'll be doing more stuff around all of those projects. But then it gets a little bit tricky, because actually we're talking a lot more projects now. And this is where you probably need maybe 2 or 3 people to come on board to help support that change activity. So you know where we're going. So that's the project level. And then it gets particularly tricky when there's a big piece of work. So something fundamentally is going to change in that business. And they generally call that a program. So then you can see that a PMO could mean a project a program management office, because then we need more people to come on board to help support the program. And it's bigger, it's more risky, there's more people involved. We're not just talking about one project manager, there could be many. And there's essentially a PMO there is supporting that program manager and also the project activity that's going on. Clear so far? So we've got 2 types of PMOs so far: a project management office and a program management office. So really the big issue then becomes that what about if we've got an organization that's got big programs going on and lots of little projects going on? Essentially they need some help in to understand what's happening right across their organization, because they've got all these people working on all these different change activities. And generally that's where you get something called a portfolio. And there's your third P, which is a portfolio management office. So it's all about trying to support an organization's change activity, and that can mean hands-on support around the delivery of projects and programs, or it could mean that actually a PMO might be helping that organization to perhaps get better at what they're doing, become more mature in the way they deliver projects, or to get better skilled up in order to be able to deliver more projects or more risky projects. So essentially that's the long answer. But the short one is that essentially the PMO is there to support change activity in an organization. And if it wasn't them, who would it be?
Lindsay's explanations felt very consistent with my experience. I've worked in project management offices, program management offices, and portfolio management offices. The confusion seems to arise from when people have worked with one type of PMO and they just think all PMOs are doing the same thing as that person or that function they've experienced in the past. And after all, in most cases, most project professionals will have some consistency in their priorities and how they tackle their jobs. For example, you know that every single project manager you're working with is trying to deliver a project. Pretty simple. So imagine the difference in perception of what a PMO is if the PMOs you've worked with were just focused on creating packs and arranging meetings. How different it would be if the PMO you'd worked with was somebody who was organising the portfolio for the following year. There's a huge difference between a PMO who is a room booking service versus one who is approached and trusted by directors of businesses to give an explanation and give assurance on whether projects are likely to succeed and whether it's still worth pumping millions of dollars into them. So the priorities of PMOs can differ greatly between the different types of P, whether it's a project, program, or portfolio. So I asked Lindsay how she would define those priorities.
So from a PMO perspective, so portfolio management officers, the things that they're trying to grapple with the most is about prioritization. So what is it that organization is going to do? So how do they choose? So they've got all this stuff going on in their organization, plus there's all these things that they want to do. So how do we know which ones to actually settle on? So which ones are going to be the ones that are going to give us a bigger return on investment or to deliver a particular benefit? So prioritization is definitely the thing at a portfolio level that people are still trying to grapple with and get that definitive way of trying to do, and understand what projects and programs are going to be delivering. From a program point of view, it's again, from a PMO point of view, it's how do we work out the interdependencies? It's the dependencies that happen across all the different projects that are happening within a program. And how do we work out, well, this project over here is 80% complete. This one needs to kick off when that gets to 85%. And when that needs to happen, how do we get the resources in place and ready to go? So it's the dependencies between the projects that collectively will make that program successful. So that's the one for the program level. At a project level, often it's the simplest things. It's the things like being able to do status reporting that works really well. You'll often hear about people in PMOs grappling with the, it's the RAG status, it's the red, amber, green of the status reports. This is a great thing about people that are working within PMO. Even at a project level, you're not just working for the project manager and the project team. You're working for other stakeholders and senior management within that organization. And it's about being able to get good, actionable insights from that project level that need to be reported upwards. And it could be that they need resolution from senior management, or actually they just need a resource request that's absolutely urgent. So again, at that level, at a project level, it's just going to be about getting the stuff out of that project, that, information that more people within the organization, the stakeholders and senior managers need to know about.
Finally, I got a little cheeky at the end and I put Lindsay on the spot with a difficult question. Would you recommend a career in PMOs?
Would I recommend a career in PMO? Absolutely, I would. It's just one of the most interesting jobs in project management. I don't know why anybody would choose to be a project manager and delivering projects. You think about it from a PMO point of view, certainly the ones that we've met over the years, is the ability, if you're somebody that is curious, nosy, wanting to know what's going on and how to help, see pieces where actually if we just tweaked this and did this a little better, we're going to get a much bigger return. Or actually, if we just looked at perhaps like the way that our sponsors work within our organization, maybe we can do some work with them and we'll see a dramatic change. They can literally, in PMO, work in different areas from project, program, portfolio, at any of those levels. And the challenges are just always, there's different challenges happening all the time. From a project point of view, your project manager, you're dealing with the same old in and out. But with PMO, this is about being able to help your organization get better at projects, full stop. And there's a lot of stuff in there for you to go at. So yeah, absolutely, I would. And last 20 years I've been telling that. So I think I think people that are in PMO would also obviously agree that every day is different.
So there's one thing that Lindsay and I didn't really cover in that conversation, and it's when you talk about the PMO, sometimes you'll find that you're talking about a function, and on other occasions you're talking about a person. That's because as well as the P changing, sometimes the O does as well. Sometimes it means office, so project management office, and other times it means officer, project management officer. So there's not 3 variations of PMO, there's actually 6. Luckily, this one's not too confusing. The officer, or officers if there's more than one of them, will have their priorities and their tasks defined by the type of PMO office they're working within. But here's an interesting thing. If it's a very large team and a very large PMO, you could actually have multiple people, all called PMOs, who are doing entirely different tasks. For example, you could have people who are focused entirely on resource management, or someone else on finance, or someone working on project proposals and demand management, and they can all still be called PMOs. In future videos, I'm going to look in more depth into the functions and the services of the project management office, the program management office, and the portfolio management office. But if you have an interest in PMO right now, I suggest that you jump onto LinkedIn, go and find Lindsay Scott, have a look at the House of PMO and make contact there. It's well worth your time. Alternatively, the book, the PMO Competency Framework, tells you pretty much everything, and there's a link to that in the description. And if you'd like to see a snapshot in the day of the life of the world's greatest PMO, did I say? Then consider watching this video here. It's beautiful.